Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve Podcast. Today's guest is an author and journalist hailing all the way from Glasgow, Scotland. Her name is Emma Grae. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. We were just talking about this off camera, like trying to put this together has been a challenge.
Challenging.
Sometimes it happens, but we're finally here. And I'm just going to jump straight into it. How did you actually get into writing? Like, talk us through your journey of, I suppose, where it sort of started, where you were kind of initially inspired to sort of start writing and then sort of lead us up to where we are now.
Sure. So in school, really, I've been writing since I was a teenager, basically, on a website called, I think the first time I tried to do it and show people was on a site called LiveJournal, which no longer exists. This would have been about 2007, 2008. I'd have been about 13 at that time. No, I'd have been 14 or 15. I'm not that young. Early mid noughties is when I was doing it, and I just kept doing it since then. Was very lucky. I did an English degree, which was largely not necessarily a waste of time, but it's not. Those degrees don't get you jobs, and you kind of have to learn that the hard way. I did a master's in writing, which again was great, very useful for what I ended up doing, but again, not very useful job-wise. So I basically had to kind of fight my way into a job that paid the bills.
It's an interesting one,
That
isn't
was how I
it?
ended up a journalist, because I tried to be an English teacher, and I respect everyone that can do it, but I personally wasn't going to be able to be an English teacher. It takes up so much time. All of your weekends are spent planning lessons. So even though the hours aren't that bad, the actual
Really?
amount of admin around it is insane. And the years where you train to be a teacher, teaching is your life. And I was not prepared to give up my books. So that didn't last very long.
That's interesting. Yeah, I never knew that like there was an expectation to sort of work on weekends. Like I always assumed with teaching that, you'd have like dedicated hours intended for that sort of stuff. Because obviously you're not teaching all the time. So
Yeah, no,
preparing
you're like,
things.
I think from what I've heard, it's easier once you've been in the job for a couple of years. But when I was doing it, it was very much like when you're training, it's your entire weekends. And like one of the teachers she knew I was working on a book because I went straight into it from my writing master's, and she sort of said, "Oh, so when do you think you're going to finish it?" And I knew she meant it in a bitchy way. It wasn't even, "Are you going to get this published? Are you even going to finish it?" And I was like,
Oh,
yeah, she
oh,
she she was just like, "You're never going to do this, like it's impossible." And she was right in the sense that she did me a favor, because it pushed me out, and I was just like, I'm not prepared to do this. So when I was supposed to be doing lesson plans, I was writing a book, which is probably why teaching didn't work out very well for me.
I just want to pick up on something there. That person saying that to you,
Mhm.
like,
Like, she did me a favor. Like, I understand where she was coming from. But yeah, at the time it was like, oh, so if I'm a teacher, I'm just a teacher. It's not possible to do other things, when in theory, doing what I've done and doing what I now do, I now get to talk to school children and tell them about it. So it's kind of weird that it was discouraged from within the profession itself.
I feel like it's more than that though. Like I remember years ago, I was living abroad, and there was a person who was supposed to be my friend, right? And I, at the time, was so I'd given up on creativity and stuff. I was just working in like marketing or whatever, and just soul crushing stuff, right? And kind of just wondering what the hell I was doing with my life. And I remember I was sitting at a friend's house, and I mentioned that I could sing and write music. I'd done it for many years, and they sort of turned and looked at me and was like, "Oh, you couldn't be a singer." And I don't know what it
Mhm.
is about me as a human being, but when someone tells me I can't do something, it just like lights a fire up my ass, and I'm just like, no, 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 I'm going to prove you wrong. And like, I
Yeah.
feel I feel like it's like that's been the theme in my life personally. But bringing it back to yourself, like I feel like when people like maybe that person didn't mean that. Maybe she was just like, oh, when are you going to have more time for teaching, or I don't know, whatever. But like this kind of mentality of either being annoyed that someone's doing something other than the main job, or like not getting it or whatever. Like right now in my life, I'm juggling a 50-60 hour bar job with this podcast, stuff that I do on Patreon, acting, music, a bunch of different things that I'm trying to do. And is it a lot? Yes. Is it smart? Probably not. But still going to do it because I have that dream. And it's like when I never quite understand when people pick at that and go like, oh, but why would you choose to do that? Why not just settle for this? And it's like, because this is what I want to do. Like, this is my thing.
Yeah,
This is, it's difficult to explain that to someone who doesn't necessarily have the
a lot of
same passion for something.
sacrifice and a lot of quiet work people don't necessarily understand. Like I've been in situations where certain things I've not had the chance to do with my life purely because of what I've chosen to do with the books and stuff. And I don't think people get very confused about my age and stuff like that. They don't like, they either assume that I'm incredibly young, but I'm like, how the fuck did I, sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was like, how the hell would I have done this if I was 21 to start with? That would be literally impossible. I wouldn't have had the time. I would have been like out of school. I would have been like in first year, like with like a 50,000 word manuscript. That's just not possible. Or, yeah, it's bizarre. Like it's bizarre. Or people, the latest one I get is people assume that I didn't like that I am not the person that wrote the books. I just promote them and
Oh,
stuff like that. Yeah, which is weird.
yeah.
People
What they call it, ghostwriter or something. It's the
not
word.
even that I'm the ghost. I don't even know what they think. Like I think people just sort of sometimes assume that like, oh, because it's something a lot of people want to do and not many people do. And I'm aware that I was lucky and I was aware that the stars aligned in a lot of ways and have continued to. But yeah, people just don't understand or they don't get it. Like they're like, oh, but how do you actually do that if you're not a celebrity? Things like that. And it's a bit like it's a lot of hard work. And once if you can tell people, like there's people who've been in my life who've not managed to make the cut for a huge amount of time, and it's purely because they've just not understood my life and what it involves and the amount of sacrifice that it involves, because
Right.
it's a lot.
What would you say are like the biggest things you've had to sacrifice for this?
Relationships for sure.
Okay.
Like I have a very specific schedule, and it's not that I can't, it's like if someone wanted a lot of my time, I know I'm not going to be able to give them it, and I wouldn't lie to them about that. But also the fact that if I'm thinking about writing and I've got stuff in my head, I prefer someone who I can talk it through with, or who's going to have a degree of sympathy for the kind of pressure that I'm under. And if they don't, that can be especially if they themselves are just someone who goes to work, and when they're off work, that's their free time. And it's not like that for me, because I'm basically juggling two technically free careers if you include the stuff I do with Scots language. So it's like I don't have that luxury. Like I had like the week I've been off for 4 days, and like yesterday was the third day. No, it was the third evening. It was the second day, and I luckily my friend was super understanding, thankfully, but he was staying in London for the weekend, and I felt really bad because he wanted me to go to a concert, and I just did not have the energy, and I was like, I'm sorry, I can go for dinner. Thankfully, he still had a nice time. He knew the band, and they went for a pint, and it was all good. It was fine, but I felt really, really guilty because I was like, for self-care reasons, I cannot go out to this gig and be out till 11 o'clock because I need an evening to just sort of unwind if I'm going to get any work done on Monday and Tuesday.
I 100% know where you're coming from with this. Like it's weird how much I can relate to this. Like I had this conversation with someone recently, and I said, like, straight up, look, if I'm ever going to be in a relationship, that person has to just get that, like, most of my time is going to be dedicated to this stuff, and like maybe you can come together. I feel like there's just different types of people, isn't it? It's like if you're a type of person that is really heavily invested in their work and it takes a lot of their time, you just need someone who's going to get that, who's going to be similar minded, maybe even doing something similar or completely different profession, but they get it. But like when it's someone that doesn't, it's like to them it might seem like unfair, like you're being selfish, like you're not caring about them. But it's like, look, at the end of the day, as you
knew what
put
you
it,
signed up for. Like for me, I'm very upfront about it and stuff, and I'm like, this is my life, this is the schedule that I'm on, and you're gonna have to appreciate. And it's not necessarily that someone needs to do something similar. Like I think that's probably not a good thing, to be honest, if someone was doing something similar, because you don't want to feel like you're in competition with somebody else. It's more like, just even from a friend point of view, like I found it the better people who like one of my closest friends is like has been a colleague before. We've worked together and we like worked together on similar stuff. He chaired my book lunch and it was great, but he has a very similar schedule to me, and it's good because it's like, okay, cool, like sometimes it motivates me to get more stuff done, because he's doing like his second PhD right now. He's insanely just done so much. It's mad, but it's good because it's like, okay, cool. You get why I'm up at like 2 a.m. for no apparent reason, which is most nights.
Yeah, it's that's the thing as well. Like I've been saying this to my live stream audience lately, that like, because there's so little time that I have now, it's like, if anything, in a way, weirdly, it's kind of been a good thing, because it kind of makes you appreciate the time you do have, and you try to make it work. So it's like, okay, I've only got half an hour here, I'll do this, or I've got an hour here, I'll do this. Or as you put it earlier, sometimes you just have to take a moment for self-care and just be like, I'm just gonna sit and just do nothing for like an hour, and then that'll be like my rest period before I have to go do all this stuff, because it is like a second job, like as you put it, like you're working several jobs, and then you come home and it's like, right, I got to work on this stuff. But obviously writing, you got to be in like the right headspace for it. Like you can't just go, okay, I'm just going to sit down and write. Like it's not, it doesn't work that way. Especially if you got like inspiration like that just hits you at like 3 a.m. You're like, oh shit, I can't write this down, and then it's like,
not even that much. There's that much writing. Like the actual process of writing a manuscript is like, it's tiring, yes, and it's a lot of it. It's the editing it that makes it difficult, and it's the promoting it and stuff. So right now, for example, I'm not writing till we call it Hogmanay, like New Year's Eve. I can go back to my third book then, because I've got half of it written. But
oh wow,
I, from now till then, I've got like admin to do, and it's like it needs to be done properly, because it's going to make my life easier down the line if I know where all my stuff is. And it sounds like such a small job, but it's really not. It's actually a massive job. And because I do quite a specific type of writing, and I get asked to talk about it quite a bit, I need to like sort of catch up on I guess other bits of reading and stuff like that, which is, so I'm sort of dedicating the next 5 weeks to that. In theory, I'll have broken the back of it within 2 weeks. In theory, I'll have got rid of the worst of it. But like it is important to give myself time to do that. And a lot of this year, even though I've done another book this year, I'd finished the manuscript, or at least the first draft, by last New Year. And then it was kind of early this summer, where it was kind of like I kind of expanded the book and worked on it. I was quite lucky with the way the publisher worked and stuff with that one. But I was sort of like editing that book, writing that book, and then I had loads of admin for the first book to do, which was a weird situation to be in. But we got there, and it seems to have worked out, so it's all good.
yeah. So you're not self-published, you're working through a publisher, is that right? Like, is it a deal arrangement, or you?
Yeah, it's
like,
a deal. Yeah, both
okay.
of them. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, what would you say are like the benefits of working with a publisher?
Well, for example, you can't get nominated for a lot of literary prizes if you don't have a publisher.
Didn't know that.
As far as I'm aware, if you're self-published, you could occasionally get into Waterstones, but it's not common. Like if you've got a publisher, they'll like put it into Waterstones for you. They will contact book reviewers. They will get you press coverage. Like I'm quite good at doing that anyway, because I'm a journalist, so I can I've been quite, at least the second time, it's been helpful for them to know that I can do it anyway. First one, I was a wee bit more on my own, even though I had a publisher. This time around, I've thankfully had backup, which has been very helpful, because it's been nice to sort of be like, oh, there's an article about the book, and I didn't have to like chase down the journalist to actually get it done. So no, it's been really helpful. And yeah, just for literary prizes and stuff like that, and even just connections, I guess, within the book world and things, they can sort of point you in the right direction, and they can also give you deadlines, for example, which is very helpful.
So obviously you mentioned that you're working on your third book now. As I can see right now, your first book is The Tongue She Speaks, is that correct?
That's the second one.
That's the second one. Oh, sorry, my apologies.
Sorry.
So that's the second one. The first one is Be Good to Ye. I can't pronounce this.
Be good to your mammy.
Be Good to Your Mammy. Yeah. So when was your first one published?
It was out in August 2021.
2021. Wow, this is working fast.
I didn't write them that quickly. This is like over a decade's work. It just sort of happened to come out quite quickly.
Okay. So it's been a long time in the process. Like,
yeah.
I suppose my next question to you is, what would be your kind of key takeaways from publishing these books, and sort of then the aftermath thereafter? Because I've always wondered, once an author publishes a book, like, obviously, you have your press run, you talk about the book, you get interviewed about it, you hopefully enjoy some good sales from it as well. But like, what would you say were the main takeaways from those books?
The they've been like good confidence boosts, I guess, because Mammy did very well. The Tongue She Speaks has only been out for like a month, so it's doing well as far as I'm aware, but it'll be interesting to see sort of what comes of it. Usually you don't really know how well a book's done until like it's been out a while, if that makes sense. Like Mammy never got any like accolades until over a year after it came out because of the way the process works. And like I'm going up to Edinburgh like in 7 days. I'm going up before because I have to work, so I'm going up, getting the 5 a.m. train up from London, and my shift starts at 12:30, so I have to get to Edinburgh and get to a coffee shop to work so that I can do this. Yeah, so Mammy did really well, and it's been a good confidence boost. And if Mammy hadn't done so well, the second book wouldn't have existed. The reason the second book came out really quickly was because Mammy did well, and they were sort of, I had the second book, it was partially commissioned by the Scots Language Centre as part of like a research project into the thing. Oh. And then I was like, oh, this is a young adult novel, I'm just going to write it as one. And then I mentioned it on Twitter, and a lady who's already with that publisher contacted them and said, hey, she's got a book too, and they got in touch with me. So I was really, really lucky that they sort of reached out. So yeah, I was very lucky that the second one, I wouldn't have expected it to. I don't expect to do the third one. I don't know what publisher I'm going to go with. It's going to depend on various things. But with the third book, it's going to be probably 2024, I reckon.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Obviously, and your books are written in Scots language. If I understood this correctly, so they're like primary form is written in the Scots language, and then do you have like translations to other languages as well, or no? Oh, so it's purely in Scots. That's interesting.
Well, the first book's kind of a mix. Like, there's a character whose chapters are told through a diary, and they're in English basically. It depends on the character. It depends. There's like English speaking characters in the books. So yeah, but they're entirely in Scots. There's not many books like that out there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, based on that, do you not worry sometimes maybe about the accessibility for a wider audience? Like, I get that it's targeted for people that know Scots and can read Scots and stuff, but like, do you not worry sometimes maybe you might not be able to reach the wider audience because of that?
I think it's what I'm doing has worked out much better for me than if I'd written English books, because English books.
I should rephrase my question. So I don't mean like only writing in English. What I meant is like having the translations as well. So like obviously still in Scots, but then having, like for instance, if
I think the books would lose a lot if I did that. Like, I think that they would work.
Sure. Okay.
If someone sold the film rights, then it would work in potentially more of an accessible form of Scots. But I think that you would be losing a lot of what made the books good, and also the fact that like publishing is very, 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 very hard. Like I know people who've had agents and stuff, and who've on the surface been so close to like a big deal, and it's just not materialized because it is really, really hard, and it costs a lot of money to publish a book. It costs thousands, and they don't want to put money behind a book that they don't think is going to sell. So it's sort of, you have to have they do want, like, I met an agent once who told me that he wouldn't touch anyone with less than 10,000 followers on like a single social media platform, because he just said that there's no one that's going to know who they are or buy the books, and that's before he gets involved.
I've had people pull that on me, but I do get it. I do get it. Like, I've tried to get sponsors for this show, for instance, and that's always what I get thrown with is, well, how many followers do you have? How many listeners do you have? And it's like, we're getting there. Give me a chance. But it's true.
Unfortunate.
But it's fortunate. It's true. Like, you got to look ahead. It's like, oh, if I pump a load of money into this is where it will be over this time. Is this going to be a return on investment? And it's like, that's just the pure business side of it, which is harsh reality, isn't it? But you mentioned something interesting there. You said that like, obviously, if these novels were then turned into films, there would be an argument there, which I could totally see. You can get like subtitles and stuff, which would be awesome. Which means you could keep it authentically in the Scots language. Is that like a goal? Have you spoken to people? Is that something?
I'd like to, but I don't. It's going to depend on, the books did more than I thought they would do, but whether it would go that far, I don't know, because like someone said, oh yeah, there's no Scots language. Like you've got Train Spotting and you've got a couple of others, but you don't have a huge amount of that sort of thing having made it that far. I would love it if it did, but I'm not. I always said I would be happy if I published one book in my life, and then I ended up somehow doing 2 before 30, which is awesome. But now I'm like, okay, what's next? And I'm like, well, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And if something like that materializes, that would be great. If it doesn't, I'm not going to be crying about it, but it would be good to sort of, I think the stories that I tell are important from like
Yeah.
societal point of view. They have stuff to say, and I think that like my stories aren't necessarily my stories. I'm like very much an observer. Like my first book, I used to work in a nursing home when I was at uni. So a lot of people told me their stories and they became characters and stuff, and all these people are dead now. So it's sort of important to me that, you know, I was a vessel for a lot of these stories to come into the world, and I was in the right place at the right time to hear them. But, you know, it would be nice if they reached as big an audience and as they could, but it's not like, you don't make money being an author even when you're like signed and stuff like that, unless you're like J.K. Rowling. It's realistically not going to pay the bills. Like I've been told by some people who've done really, really well, like how they've done it. Like for example, they might self-publish the ebook but properly publish like the main novel so that they can get full ebook sales because no one's taken a cut, things like that. So there's ways around it. I think they call it being a hybrid offer, or like I said, if people sell the film rights, then that's going to make them a lot more money.
Sure. And I can tell from that it's not really like only about the money for you. That's like clearly there's a lot more.
Yeah, like if I was doing this for money, I would be doing something else.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I read it. Like I know like authors. I've had quite a few authors on this show, and you know you can tell like how much time and effort goes into it, and you know even just the fact that the whole process can take like a year at a time, maybe even 2 years at a time, just to put something together. It shows you everything you need to know, really. I suppose my next question to you would be just talk us through like your passion for the Scots language and literature and everything. Like it clearly booms through. We can hear a bit more about that, but I just kind of want to hear in your own words, like, why is this so important to you?
I think because I grew up getting told like the way I spoke was wrong, let alone even considered writing in it. I spent a long time trying to write in English, and I wasn't, not that I was bad at English, I wasn't. I got an English degree, but I was much better at writing in Scots, and I didn't come to that realization until I was in my late teens, early 20s, when it even occurred to me that that was a thing that you could do. It's not something that's encouraged, and even now that I do it, I do get quite a bit of backlash. Like on Amazon, basically all of my bad reviews are fake reviews from people that hate Scots who clearly, and I would be fine with it if they bought the book, but they clearly haven't, which is annoying. They're just like, why is she doing this? This is a waste of time. Like even like there's a guy who I don't know if he's still got the job, but he was the head of communications at the Tory party in Scotland, and like decided to take like personal digs at me and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, well, I guess this is the hill that I'm gonna die on, so fine.
Do you know, I mean, it's difficult to really try and decipher, I suppose, idiocy, but do you know why there is a backlash? I mean, because, okay, from an outsider's perspective looking in, this is what I see. I see a language where it's still spoken quite commonly in Scotland. Maybe not like in all areas. Maybe, you know, I know okay, forgive my ignorance here. Is Scots different from Scottish Gaelic?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So that again, there's more. I've seen entire TV programs spoken only in that language before. So I know that there are people, regions speaking it, whatever. Maybe it's still taught in schools. You know, there's clearly still like a need for it, a want for it, but then there will always be
Scots isn't so much taught in schools. So basically, Scots is a sister language to English. So it's Dutch and Afrikaans are kind of two similar examples where if you can speak English, you're going to understand a lot of Scots, but that doesn't make them the same language. Like Scots has its own grammar, it has its own syntax, there's loads of words in Scots that mean absolutely nothing to English speakers, but because there's crossovers and there's different ways of like the English word for awful is awful, but offie is the Scots word. So there's a similarity to the point where an English speaker could sort of understand what was going on. And that's where the contention comes from, because Scotland's very politically divided right now between unionism and nationalism. And despite the fact that I write in Scots and I've been almost like, people have forced a lot of politics onto me when that was never my intention. When I started writing these books, I just wrote them because I wanted to say something important from a social point of view, not because I was saying anything political. It was never political. Nothing I've written, apart from taking a dig at Donald Trump in my first book, like I've never actually said anything political, at least not within the UK point of view. But yeah, people see Scots language as a tool of divisionism with the rest of the UK, and it's sort of like people in Scotland trying to say, oh, we're different, but it's like, but we are, like, whether you want to admit it or not. Like, I tried to use a £10 note from Scotland and Costa in London, and they laughed at, well, they didn't laugh at me, but they were like, we can't accept this is foreign currency. And I'm like, you can though, because Scotland's in the union, but they just wouldn't. They're like, we can't take this money. I was
Yeah,
like, fine.
I just stopped that. Like the bar that I work in here in Manchester, we get Irish and as in Northern Irish money and Scottish money all the time, and we always accept it. It's legal tender. So whoever you are, if you ever see this, which I doubt you will, but you're an idiot. Yeah, sorry. That just pisses me off. Like,
yeah, it's bizarre.
I mean, it's kind of that age-old joke in the UK of like, oh, Scottish money, haha. But it is actually legal tender. It always has been. So I think
people just don't understand because they don't see them. Like, they looked at it and they were like, oh, this is foreign money. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not, though. They will accept it. And the guy was just like, I'm sorry, we can't. And I'm like, it's fine. Like, I don't really carry cash anyway, but I was just like trying to get rid of it. And I'm like, right, well, I guess I'm going to get rid of this when I'm in Edinburgh and not when I'm here.
I like it. It's interesting to look at like a note that's different from like standard ones. I don't know. That's just me. But yeah, anyway. Let's talk a bit more about your journalism. How did you get into journalism? Talk us through your journey from the beginning to. Are you still doing it now?
Yeah, I do it full time. Yeah.
Okay.
Accidental. Like, I didn't do a journalism degree at uni. I didn't really plan on being a journalist. I just sort of ended up one, which is so basically I moved to London after I stopped doing teaching, and I needed a job in writing. And the job I got wanted someone who could write it at length. That was why they hired me, because they knew I had a background, like I had a creative writing master's, and they knew I was writing a novel and stuff. So they were like, okay, she could probably write the kind of content that we want, which I did. But then the needs of the internet was like the wacky Wild West when it came to advertising in 2017. It was very, very different. The stuff you could get away with back then from a content writing point of view, you would not get away with now. Like, there's been a big the long stories of like 3,000 or 4,000 words. People were reading them before, whereas now they don't. So then things changed quite quickly after I started doing that, and then there was a move towards like more traditional journalism, quote unquote. It wasn't traditional, it was still very much a specific type of journalism. So I did that, and then basically learned it on the job. Like, my first, like, I think it was 2017. Yeah, it was at the summer. I remember having to write about like politics, and I like had no concept of impartiality because I was just someone who wrote novels. Like, I was not a journalist, but you learn that quite quickly. Like, if you're on the job and you're doing it for like 9 hours a day, you learn it quite quickly. So I did learn, and so I basically got taught by doing, and then I was told that I wouldn't be able to progress as a journalist because I only had an English degree, and they're like, you don't have any media law training, so you're not going to get anywhere regardless of the fact that you've got tons of experience. So I, during lockdown, I did like an NCTJ in journalism. So I've got all my papers now, thankfully. It was a pain in the bum. It was expensive, but I've got it now, so no one can turn. Like, now I'm in the fortunate position, because a lot of people go to uni, do a journalism degree, and can't get any experience, so the degree's worthless. You kind of need both.
This shit drives me mad. It's that whole fucking catch-22 thing of like, well, I need the experience, but I haven't got the degree, or I've got the degree but no experience. It's like, it was the same when I finished my degree in marketing. Like, you know, obviously I didn't have any experience. I had like maybe 2-3 months to my name, and they're like, oh, well, you need 3 to 5 years. And it's like, I've just finished my degree. How the fuck am I going to get 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, and I feel really bad about it too, because like I was very lucky that, so I was in my first job in journalism for like 5 years, and then I was lucky that I left. And again, my writing does open doors even within journalism, which is awesome. So I worked in an archive for about a year.
Oh wow!
And
Whereabouts?
I got to work in television, which was cool. I wouldn't name them, but it was an archive, which was cool, and did that for about a year. So they taught me how to video edit, so I can produce, which is cool.
Nice.
Not saying I'm an expert at it, because I'm not, but like, I did get taught by the right people in the right place, which was really cool. So that was handy. So I was very lucky that I got like the right training on site, and I feel really, really bad for people that just can't get a look in, because you know that you were very much in the right place at the right time to get that training that's enabled me to do what I do. But I also freelance as a journalist, so I've written for like Cosmo, Refinery 29, Huffington Post.
Oh wow.
I did a lot of that during lockdown, but before lockdown I was trying to freelance because I realized I could make quite nice like money on top of my normal job. Like if you're lucky, not that you get this all the time, but like if you have good ideas and you sell them to the right place, you can get like you can get £250 for 800 words if you can freelance well. So that's like a really good rate for like 3 hours work, which is awesome. So I've not been freelancing. That's still a lie. I've actually done loads this year, but I didn't do very much last year. But I kind of write about Scots language now. That's sort of turned into a thing, so it's sort of merging the two, and I do that quite regularly, which is nice. On top of my normal job, which is like just like standard news, standard features kind of thing. But yes, it's a difficult industry because a lot of people in it kind of like me, I guess, sort of got into it kind of back door, which meant that they, I guess, had lots of experience, and then they maybe got the qualifications once they were already in the door. Because like I get a lot of emails from people saying, oh, can we come for work experience? And I feel like I've had people contact me on Twitter, and I've just sort of given them my best advice, which is freelance. If you can't get actual work experience, if your ideas are good enough, an editor might commission them. But in terms of like getting into like big media companies and stuff, like I wouldn't even know where to begin suggesting it, because I know it's like a big metal door that you can't see the back of. Because I went to one of the big companies in Belfast when I lived in Ireland, and this was before I had any experience, and within 5 minutes of going for the interview I knew I wasn't going to get it, because I was like, I'm not going to get this. I know I'm not, because there's like 400 people. Well, it was something like 400 people for like 20 jobs. I was like, there's no point. Like, what's the point in this? I'm just not going to get a look in. And I didn't. I was right. I was just lucky that I got the job I got in London when I got it. And I was lucky that I was able to make money through other sources to pay for the journalism in qualification, because that was expensive. That was like an extra £4,000, which is like, that wasn't ideal because I didn't want to be taking on that kind of debt, but I did, and I managed to get it paid off. But that was luck and a lot of hard work, because during COVID I was basically working 3 jobs as well.
Jesus. How did you find the time? How did you do it without just losing your mind? Like, I don't
Because I wasn't doing anything else. Like during COVID I had nothing better to do with my time, like realistically. So I had to go to like the journalism school on a Saturday.
Right.
And then on a Wednesday night, but I wasn't doing anything else. I was stuck in the house. So I was like, okay, fine. And because I'd already done 2 degrees, I already knew I could study quite well, and I'd already done a master's. So for me, it was like, okay, I'm just going to wing this one. Yeah. And I was lucky that like there was a portfolio, for example, that you had to do as part of the master's degree. But I already had, no, it's not a master's degree. It's like a postgraduate. It's not technically a master's. It's a weird thing that if you've done it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I could use stuff that I'd already written at work as my portfolio, which meant I didn't really need to worry too much about that part of the course. I already kind of had what I needed, as long as it had been written and published within the past year. Whereas some people were coming straight from uni, so they didn't have any journalism experience. So for people like me, it was a bit easier to sort of just get the papers. But it's horribly unfair. It's horribly unfair. It is not nice. And I feel really bad for people coming out of uni, because all of the companies have gone remote now. So how are you supposed to get it? Was bad enough trying to get experience before. How are you meant to get it when the office is empty? Who's going to teach you?
Yeah, like I can relate to this somewhat. Like I feel like sometimes in certain industries, certain places, it is just a case of like, do they like you? Are they willing to spend the time on you? If they do, they let you in. Happy days. You know, it's the beginning of something very special potentially, and you can get a lot of opportunities that way. But sometimes you just don't get that, and it's like you're just relying on other people and the goodwill of other people, and it's just, what do you do? How do you do that? I guess you just keep trying, keep throwing yourself into situations and just see.
It's horrible. Like there's people I know who wanted in, and I was able to get them in, and I felt really, really bad, because when in certain places when they're hiring, let's say if you've got a friend that wants to do journalism who wants in, because they're going to get 300 CVs, and there's going to be like 40 or 50 of them that are probably all perfectly able candidates. So then they'll be like, right, do you know this person in real life? Do you think they'd be a good fit? Would we get on with them? And then they kind of take it from there. And it isn't fair. It's not. Like, I've seen it, and it's crap that like people who know people get further if they know the right people. I mean, but it's not necessarily true in the sense that, like, the job I had in television, I didn't know anybody like at all. I got that just because of the books and stuff, and they thought, well, she's probably going to be able to do this. But it was and I was lucky that it was such a big company that they paid for, like, I think if I'd paid for the training, it would have been well over £1,000's worth of training just that I got just to be able to do the job. So I got sent away to this little course, and it sucks because it's like, how are people supposed to have that kind of money, especially if they came straight from uni? Because obviously in England you have to pay for your degree. You're not realistically going to have that kind of money to pay for it, so you rely on the company paying for it, and not every company is prepared to train you because they might not get their investment back.
Let's bring it back to just being a journalist for a second. What's the strangest or craziest story you've ever covered in your time as a journalist?
Oh God, where to start? I've done everything, like literally everything. Like, I'm like 6 years in now. Like, you name it, I've written about it. Like, you can think of the weirdest shit ever, and I've done it. Basically, at this stage, like the weirdest of the weird, I have done it. Like,
is there anything in particular that stands out to you that maybe just you were like, "What? I gotta write about this"?
like, I've done everything. I've done cannibalism. I've done
Oh my
loads of
God.
porn. I've done loads of stuff on death.
Yeah.
Loads. Like, literally, you name it, I've done it at this point. I've done it all. Been there, done that one, and got the t-shirt. I've done a pandemic. I've done like US elections. I've done it all. and especially when it, like, in the time that I've been a journalist, like, you think it's done and it's not done. The Queen dying was definitely, everyone, like, we all said it was going to be a big deal, and everyone was kind of prepared, and like, I'd done, like, we called it like London Bridge, like we were all really, really prepared for it. The reality of it was the actual day of the funeral wasn't actually that interesting. I don't know what I was expecting. The actual day of the announcement, like, we were all, like, I knew she died at like 2 PM because of my job, which was weird.
No, weird.
Although she technically hadn't died then. They'd all called it because the BBC went to rolling coverage, which meant that they knew she died.
Yeah. Yeah, because they get a message ahead of time and then they have to get everything prepared.
The big media companies knew ahead of time. They had sources in the palace, so they would have probably. I imagine, I wasn't in TV at the time. I was just written journalism, but like when the plan was always it wasn't even like a very like well secret plan. Like, there's news articles about it, but the idea was that the moment that she died, that they would switch to rolling coverage, so everyone knew when BBC presenters were in like black ties that she was dead or dying. And it's quite funny because I was in Costa. I was supposed to be on my day off, and of course I never get a day off. And there were people in the coffee shop, and they were like, "Oh, do you think she's dead? Do you think she's dead?" I told her, "I'm a journalist. She's dead." Sorry. They're like, "Really?" Like, and then they announced it, and then I was like, "Told you." And then I was like, "Can you guys look after my laptop while I run to the toilet, please? Because I need to." This is gonna, yeah. So that was fun, and I got to do like a cool piece on like how the Queen spoke Scots, which was fun. So I got to do I got like a big front pager that week, which was cool in Scotland. So that was nice to actually have something to show for that week. That was like a proper. I don't do that much print journalism, so it's nice when I get to do it because it's nice to feel like you're in a newspaper.
Yeah, coincidentally, she was actually in Scotland, I believe, about the time of her passing.
In Balmoral, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then
so
obviously,
it was Operation Unicorn, not London Bridge, I believe, if I remember correctly.
I say because I remember I was working at the bar.
Well, it was London Bridge when she got to England, but they called it Unicorn when she died in Scotland.
Right. Yeah. It was interesting, like just watching because I was at the bar when it got announced. And I worked this whole shift, and and the day of the funeral and everything, both very weird days. But I remember just the rolling coverage of just like seeing a car driving down the motorway. It's just so weird. It felt like something out of one of those like US cop shows, except there's like no one chasing them. It's just a car.
Yeah,
it's just really odd. And also just it kind of reminds you just like how far it is between Scotland and England. Like if you drive, it just takes forever.
She was in Balmoral, so she was like really far up. Like it's far. Like, I mean, I was in the Highlands like 2 weeks ago. To get from the Highlands, to get from Glasgow to the very top of Scotland is further from Glasgow to London. That's how big it is. Like if you go right up the top, it can take you longer. Yeah, because I was right up the top and it took like, I think it was 5.5 hours from Glasgow, but you can get from London to Glasgow in like 4.5.
Damn, that's impressive.
So it's like a 10-hour
London?
trek.
You can get to London to Glasgow? Well, by train, you mean? Not by car.
Yeah, by train it's 4.5. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say yeah, but not by car.
Yeah, it's like 4.5 on the train. It's not by driving. It'll take you longer.
For sure. Yeah, I remember because my my family on my dad's side they're Scottish, and it's funny, like whenever they tell me like going to Scotland, it's like takes them like 12-13 hours if you go by coach. I'm like it's bad enough when I take the coach down to London just to see family for 5 hours. So I can't imagine sitting on the coach for like 13 hours. Like
I do it all the time. I'm doing it in like 2 weeks. They're cheap. It's like £13.
13?
Yeah, if you book it in advance, you can get from Glasgow to London for 13 quid.
Damn,
Whereas if you book the train and it's last minute, you're talking like 100 quid. So for me, it's like if I have to do it regularly, I don't like it, but I'm not paying. I refuse to pay that kind of money on the train. If you book the train far enough in advance, you can get it for like between like 30 and 60, which is like okay, maybe. But like if you're doing it, but also like I want to, for example, next Friday see my friend, and I either book a hotel and stay an extra night, or I get the bus back to London at 11:30 at night after a few drinks. So I'm going to get the bus back after a few drinks. It's just easy. I'll just fall asleep.
It's a good idea. It's frustrating, isn't it? I've had the same thing because every time I get the coach, because I remember one time weighing it up, I'd either pay £40, as in £20 each way for the coach, so £40 in total, or pay, I think it was 120 for the train one way, possibly, or 140 for plane, because obviously plane is an option, but you know.
Manchester's not even that far.
No, it's not. It's really not. But it just, yeah. I don't know.
Just the train. I've done the bus so many times that Manchester's like not even the halfway point. That's like yeah, this is fine.
I don't know. I've never been in a position where I can afford the train, unfortunately. I would love to. I've not even done the journey on the train, so that would be nice to just experience that one time.
I mean, I went up to Manchester like 2 months ago for a work trip, and I didn't even get a seat most of the way. The train was so oversubscribed that I was sitting in the luggage rack on the way to Manchester, which was crap. People were so rude as well. They were like, go yourself. Yeah, the train service is a nightmare. So even if you've got a train ticket, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a seat right now.
Yeah, maybe coach ain't so bad.
Yeah, it's not so bad. If you can't get a seat on the train, you've got to stand from London to Manchester. It's awful.
I can't be doing that. What's the most inspiring story you've ever covered in your journalism career?
Again, it's really hard to like pick like one like specific thing because you interview a lot of interesting people. It sounds like I don't have, like I've not done anything. I've done so much that it's really, really hard to pick.
I get it.
There was a thing on Netflix that came out last year called Seaspiracy, like about how we need to stop eating fish. And there was a guy in it called George, I can't say his name, Minbio or whatever his name is, a really, really big environmentalist. And I got in touch like straight after the Netflix documentary came out, and he gave me like an hour and a half of his time, which was so kind of him because I don't think I even realized like how big a deal he was. And then he spoke about the documentary in like such amazing detail, and he'd written all these books like about just like how bad things were going for the planet and stuff like that. And yeah, the stuff he said was amazing. That was like such a good feature. And he spoke about how the RSPCA like actually kills seals sometimes, which like nobody would like even know because they see it as like a culling issue with regards to fish or something. I believe, don't quote me on that one. If you want to look it up, it would be my name, Emma Guinness, which is what I write journalism under. And if you look up Seaspiracy, it'll come up. But no, that was fascinating to just sort of see like that not all these organizations are quite what they appear. I'm sure the RSPCA does do good work, but in certain sectors they don't. And yeah, it was certainly like I didn't even realize that like fish have a specific type of chlamydia. So if you're eating fish, you're just eating chlamydia. And then I verified this with an author that I know who's a vet, He's like, it's not the same as human chlamydia, but there is like a fish chlamydia. And my dad worked on a fish farm. He's like, yeah, all the salmon have chlamydia. This is like a fact. And I'm like, well, it's a good thing I've been vegetarian for 10 years because I don't fancy that.
Would that give you like symptoms, or is it not?
No,
It's not in
no,
the same way.
it's like it's safe to consume as far as I'm aware, but like it's like these are, I mean, when you think about it, like it's cheaper right now to buy a hamburger than it is to buy a veggie burger. So what kind of life did that animal lead to purchase for £1? Like realistically, it's going to have had a pretty crap life, and all these animals that are getting treated like really badly, or realistically, by the time they get culled, they're going to be filled with cancer, all sorts of stuff, and you're consuming that willingly. It's like it's and it's a shame as well, because people often, I don't like preachy vegans, quote unquote. I'm not a vegan.
I get
For
it.
me,
I get it.
I would find it difficult to check food packets because I have OCD, and I don't want to be. I tried to be vegan. I will eat vegan if it's an option, but I don't want to put myself in a situation where I'm constantly checking labels because I know that's not good for me. But yeah, there's like I had a vegan once who basically implied I was an asshole for having a cat, and I'm like,
what?
Yeah, because she eats meat, and he's like, he sort of said to me, I know someone who's got a cat that's vegan, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, she's a cat, she's getting cat food.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Or like this idea that keeping animals is somehow inherently cruel. Like if you get into like really extreme veganism, that's what they believe. Like, I mean, I've got pets who I've kept rodents now for going on 5 years. Yeah. I have spent thousands of pounds keeping these animals alive, and they've all came from rescues, and they would have almost certainly not had very good lives if they'd gone to people who didn't know how to look after them, because a lot of the time they don't, especially if it's like a rat. They're like, oh, it's just a rat, who gives a shit what happens to it, you know? But like to like look after them properly, it's very expensive because they're classed as exotic animals, which people don't realize. Same with hamsters, they're exotic animals. Anything that's not a cat or a dog, as far as a vet's concerned, is an exotic animal.
I think as well, like with cats and dogs, I think what people forget to realize, because I've seen this a lot, like in other countries. I remember when I went to Bulgaria for the first time, seeing like stray cats and dogs. It was depressing. Like I remember thinking, like, this is awful. Like surely we could find a home for them. Like they wouldn't necessarily survive in the wild. Like obviously you see like cats are pretty proactive and they're able to look after themselves, but they still will probably have a home to go to. That's the thing. And it's like, if you actually put them into the wild, they won't survive. Like, for real. They just won't. You know?
Cats are lazy. Like they're really lazy, like very needy. Like my cat like wants in, she cries, and then she wants out and she cries, and I'm like, make up your mind, please. She knows what she wants, but yeah, she like, I got her as a kitten purely, and I would have liked to have adopted a kitten. The reason I didn't was because I've got rats and I needed a cat that would not see them as dinner. Thankfully she doesn't really know what they are. Like she's met them before. Some cats and rats, people have had instances where they've befriended each other, like a proper Tom and Jerry situation.
Oh, cool.
She's just grown up around them, so she doesn't see them as food. She doesn't get to interact with them, but she she sleeps in my bedroom, and the rats are here as well, and she never prods them or pokes them or bothers with them. She doesn't care, and they don't really care about her either. They're more interested in getting food off of me. Like she stole all my cheese last night, so I had to give them some because yeah, she ate all the cheese.
Cats eat cheese? I didn't know this. Cats eat cheese? What?
Probably just my cat. She stole a Swiss roll once. Like she really is weird.
Oh, I love animals, man. As we're winding down, I've got like a few sort of questions that I want to ask to you. What would you like your legacy to be?
I don't know. I think it would definitely be like promoting issues around mental health awareness, telling stories, like telling something worthwhile about the world as it was when I lived in the world, because I think that's really important. If you like, don't try and write, like I write about the time that I knew. Like my second book is set like in 2007. It deals a lot with like emo culture, which is like in like Bebo and all this stuff like on now. And it's been cool to sort of write about that, because I've spoken to younger readers who are like 10 years younger than me, and it's really weird because they don't know what I'm talking about. And I wouldn't even class 2007 as like historical, but to people who are teenagers now, that is historical because they were just kids when that happened. So for me, like, this sense of the world as it was in certain places at certain times is really important, but also saying something worthwhile about, about mental health, about people, about how they interact with each other. That seems to sort of be the main themes. And obviously it's not even Scots language, but this idea of like how someone talks, or their language or their way of being, and how that is still valid even if it's not seen as quote unquote proper, in the way that, the Queen's English is. Like, I grew up being told that, like, if you want to be a writer, you have to write like Shakespeare, which is not true. And I think that, I'm very lucky. Like, I imagine the more people that write the types of books that I do, the harder they'll be to publish, because like right now it is a fairly niche market, which gives me an advantage, but it also gives me a better responsibility to do it in the right way, which is why, beyond like morals, like, I mean, I know the political landscape in the UK right now is a bit of a dumpster fire, but like, for me it's important to be not political, because I don't want my work to get mixed up in that. And I think politics can be dangerous in a lot of ways, and I want to be, especially around the subject of like independence and stuff, I want to be non-political. And I think that that's important to sort of say, this is writing stories set in a certain place or with people talking in a certain way doesn't necessarily make them political, even though people will say they're political. They're not necessarily.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm the same. Like, I don't. I've had people on the show before that are religious. I've had people who are into politics. I sort of made the decision a long time ago that I wouldn't necessarily completely ignore those things, but I would not like actively promote them per se. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wanted to share stories, people's livelihoods and stuff like that. And I think for the most part, we've been able to. Well, I've been able to achieve that on this show. But same as you, I don't want to get mixed in those things, because one of the biggest reasons is I'm very like on the fence with everything, which I know people will find frustrating. But it's like, you got to be true to what you believe in. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
And like, I think that also there's a freedom in not having to. There's a freedom in, like, for instance, I've never voted. Just
Have you not?
No, I've not. And maybe that'll change one day. Who knows? Probably will, with the way things are going. But there's a freedom in being able to not choose to do these things. A freedom in not being forced to have to pick a side, or do you know what I mean? It's like,
I think it depends. I think if you're in a situation, which I'm definitely in, where people care about my opinion on certain subjects, it's important for me to not tell people what to do. I'd rather sort of not be that kind of person. I've spent, like, some of the worst people I've ever met in my life have been, especially with religion, have been, this is my view, and anyone that disagrees with this, or anyone whose lifestyle is in any way alternative to my view, is a bad person.
Right. Yeah.
This is the view that's right. This is the way. This is how you should be. And I think we're living in a world, especially with social media, and with, like, for example, someone said, like, they were going to predict that in the future there's going to be a lot less children, a lot less people getting married, a lot more alternative relationship styles, things like that. And that, but you do have people who on the surface might say that they're quite open-minded, but realistically, when push comes to shove, are actually still holding on to conservative values. And it's sort of advocating for the choice, I guess, and not judging people like that. I mean, everyone is going to judge other people to an extent. I am judging these people for being judgy. Like, I'm aware of that. That arguably makes me a hypocrite, but I would never, if I was interacting with them, I would still try and treat them with the same respect that I would hope they'd treat me. But I have definitely been treated badly because of perceived political views, because of perceived moral views, when a lot of the time these people who are extreme on either sense aren't actually willing to have a conversation. They're just willing to assume. And that's something that I deal with a bit in my second book as well, because it's not right, and it'll never be an ideal world, but it would be good if it was.
I totally agree. I've got friends that are, from various different religious backgrounds, and I can have a conversation with them all day, and it's great. And then there's other people where it's like, as you put it, very preachy, kind of just shoving it down your throat. And it's like, I don't want to listen to that. Like, I had someone, funnily enough, I think it was yesterday in my stream, just kept just going on and on and on about, like, oh, you have to believe this and you live a sinful life. And I was like, listen, you can just leave. It's okay. You believe what you want to believe, but you don't have to be here. And I don't personally share your views. And they just wouldn't drop it. So we just booted them out of the room. And it's like, I don't understand that. I don't understand this mindset of like thinking that you should go around preaching to other people. Like, I get like wanting to help other people and introduce people to new ideas and stuff. That's cool. That's awesome. But like, you have to accept that like people sometimes are going to be like, nah, I don't want to, or I don't appreciate that. And it's like, just let it go. Just let it go.
I think that's one of the reasons why, like, I guess with like creative pursuits and things that people do that make it hard is because it fundamentally it is an alternative lifestyle choice, because if you're going to do it and be able to sustain yourself financially and stuff, it's not necessarily going to be your main job unless you're extremely lucky. And even then, if it does become, if I ever get into a situation where I'm relying more on my books and speaking about the books and things like that as a way to make money, I'm still almost certainly going to have to do some form of journalism. It's just going to be a different way of working what I'm already doing, and sort of making that choice. Like, lots of people like the idea of, for example, having a podcast. They like the idea of making music, but the actual reality of doing it is completely different. Like, and when you know people that do it, you're like I was just talking to like someone who is a musician and trying to like work out, right, okay, be cool to hang out, but like, how are we actually going to like make time to hang out? Like, it's going to have to be during the day. It's not going to be an evening thing, because if you're trying to do these things, and like, even like I'm supposed to meet my publisher. I've got two publishers. It's a bit complicated right now, but supposed to meet them on Friday, and I'm working a late shift as a journalist on Friday. So I'm like, right, how am I going to work this? Do I go into central London and sit in a cafe and on my lunch break do a meeting about the book, or do I wait till the evening and meet them and go to the event that they're at? I don't really know. I've sort of tried to get a half day, but it's exhausting, and it's not something that everyone's going to understand. You can make it work, but there's sacrifices that have to be made, I think.
This makes me even more appreciative that you agreed to do the show today. Thank you so much.
It'll be interesting in some way.
Blimey.
Not too moany. It's not. I'm not trying to moan. I accept that. I've been incredibly lucky to do what I've like. There's lots of people who write books and work just as hard as me, and those books might not get out there. I'm very, very lucky that my books did see the light of day. But I think any book can see the light of day. It might just not be the time for it. I think every book, every song, there's things that, like there's that, even like there's some fantastic stuff on Netflix right now, for example, and like, for example, I believe it was Squid Game that came out last year, and that was on a computer for about a decade before it actually got anywhere. Like, things like that, and it was hugely successful. Like, the guy, I think he sold it, don't quote me on this because I did write about it at the time, but I believe he sold the film rights to Squid Game for the equivalent of a MacBook, because his computer was broken and he needed a new one. So he wouldn't have been taking that much money for it, for something that ended up being like I think it was #1 around the world, because people were willing to watch it it was Korean, I think it was. They were willing to watch it in Korean and in English. Like, that was how popular it was. And the guy who wrote it, he wrote it a long time ago. I believe it was like about 10 years that it was just sitting there.
That's why you should never give up on your dreams. Yeah, just never, just do it. Just do it, people. Doesn't matter how old you are, do it. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Be authentic. Like, don't try and be anything you're not. If you try and do something that's creatively, if you try and do something that's popular, it's almost certainly not going to be popular. And if you try and mold yourself to what and it's hard, don't get me wrong, like, my life would have been easier if I'd chosen not to do what I'm doing. Like, my life would be easier if I even from a writing point of view, and the subjects that I deal with, and the causes that I champion, it would have been easier to not do what I've had to do. Like, it's been a hard road to sort of to travel the hard left road, and you lose friends and stuff like that, but you sort of accept that those people weren't for you long term. Doesn't make them bad people, but just be authentic and sort of accept that authenticity might come at a cost, but it might also pay off in the end. Like, I certainly, if you told me in like 2019 like that I would have 2 books out in 2021, I'd be like, what? Like, it was just not on the cards. Like, as far as that, and even this time last year, Mammy had came out, and Mammy had done fairly well. It was getting good reviews and stuff. But if you told me that I would have 2 out, I'd have been like, what? How? Like, how is that going to happen? But you just don't know where opportunities are going to come from. I would also say rely on the kindness of strangers, because some of the most amazing opportunities I've had in my life have been from someone who's been a bigger fish than I'll ever be, turning around and showing me a tiny bit of kindness, and it really does go a long way.
Wow. It's very profound. Sorry. Yeah, just take it a bit. I've said this a million times. I'm sure my audience is getting sick of me saying this now, but I love doing this show, and I love speaking to people such as yourself and hearing people's stories and their life lessons and everything. And it's continues to inspire me. And I just, if I remember when I first started this show, I didn't really have an exact plan of what it was going to be. And I sort of figured it out as I went along. And I think, sure, yeah, I would love to get it, to do this properly and, have the studio, have everything, right? But probably right now, I've been doing this show for 2 years. It's like over 180 episodes or something. And every time I do this, I look forward to doing it every single time. And I look forward to the process, everything. And it's because of things like that. And it's amazing, like meeting someone like yourself, where we've got like similar mindsets, completely different backgrounds, completely different lives, but like similar things, like this idea of authenticity. Like I found it very important when I started doing stuff online a few years back, because I didn't really know how to be, like what to do, how to present myself. And then I was just like, okay, I'll just be me and see what happens. And yeah, I suppose to some extent you're always performing somewhat. Life's a play, you're trying to kind of, but there's something in being true to yourself, I think, that putting on a character just doesn't allow you to do. It's like if you're not true to yourself, it just comes back to bite you, I think, generally speaking.
You should never do something that's like for the wrong reasons, or try and, like, I've seen so many creators try and mimic other creators, and it's so obvious that that's what they're trying to do. And it's like, no, you would be much better if you stopped doing this. Because I've done this myself. Like when I started writing, I was trying to be everyone apart from myself. It's not like, I'm not talking from a point of view of not having the experience of done it. I did it and it didn't work out. And the moment that I started actually being authentic to the stories that I knew, I got somewhere. And it was literally like a complete switch almost immediately from that. And it's difficult, like, don't get me wrong, it's brutal, it's difficult, like it's a hard world that we're living in. Like it's hard to make money, it's hard to survive. Like right now, like food is extortionate. Like I have a decent job and I'm just like, I mean, don't drink Blue Spark from Tesco because it's not a good idea. Basically, you need it. Just buy Red Bull, buy proper Red Bull. Don't buy the cheap crap because it's gonna like wire you to the moon. That's what I've learned. Don't save the £2, just spend the £2.
Just spend the money, guys. What's the biggest life lesson you've learned so far?
I guess don't trust people until they've earned your trust. And even if they have earned your trust, always be reviewing whether or not they're trustworthy. I think it's important to not take people on their words and take them on what they show you. I know it's like so cliched, but like people can put on a face very easily, and people change as well. Like there's people I've known who at one point in our lives we were very, very aligned, and then life's happened and we've no longer been aligned. So it's important to have that process of review, but just sort of accept that, but also appreciate people, I think, as well, on that note of like trusting, but also trusting that there's some people that you'll meet who you might not appreciate at the time, but then like 12 years later it'll be like, flipping heck, you were like the real MVP, and I maybe didn't appreciate that entirely at the time. But I guess that's also like an age thing, from like, at least for me anyway. Like, I mean, the older I get, when I was in my early 20s, I think when I was a teenager, I was my most confident, which is bizarre for literally no reason. But I guess all teenagers are confident because they don't know anything about life. And then you get older and you realize you know nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think just be careful who you trust. Be careful what you invest your energy in, because you're not going to get that time back. And like that importance of authenticity. Like I think it's so valuable to know who you are. I think you can deal with life a lot better, even if things are absolutely horrendous. If you know who you are, you can cope with it more. If you don't know, I wouldn't like to live my life not knowing who I was or getting my validation from other people. I'm quite good at giving it to, not necessarily giving it to myself, but I'm good at finding it through other outlets. And even if it's something as simple as an animal, I'm still doing something worthwhile that's not reliant on other people. I don't think it's a good idea to be heavily reliant on other people for whether it's entertainment or love or affection. It's important and it's great when you have those things, but if you're completely reliant on other people for those things, it's not going to end well, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, especially in the last couple of years, trying to understand myself, who I am. You know, like I don't get me wrong, I adore the company of others, but most of the time I find myself on my own. And I feel like sometimes I used to punish myself for that and think like, oh, maybe there's something wrong with me. And it's like, no, there's nothing wrong with me. It's just that I am a solitude type of person. And I didn't ever think I would be like that. And it's ironic. Like I remember, because my mum is like that. And we're very different people. But when it comes to that, that's something I can relate to her on. And I'll never forget, because my mum is the type of person, like she'd sit there reading a book, like history book or whatever, literature. Yeah, we have a share of history and art and culture or whatever. Like that's what we bonded on. And I remember one time, I probably was about 14 or 15 years old. I was standing in the doorway and she's sitting there reading her book. And I'm there going out to see friends or something. And she's just sitting there reading the book. And I'm like, aren't you going to go out? Are you going to do anything? And she's like, oh, I'm very happy just doing this. And, you know, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, but, you know, I'm going to go see all these people. Like, you know, and she's like, I guarantee one day you'll be exactly like me. And I'm like, what? No, never. I'll never be like that. And she's like, you wait, you watch. And then lo and behold, as I get older, I find that being in your own company, with an important caveat to this, being happy in your own company and comfortable with your own company is key. And so then company becomes like optional, I guess. But you're not, as you put it, like rely on other people for your own happiness and joy in life. Because
I also think that money comes and goes. Like there was a woman who I was coming back to London. I hadn't traveled away. I hadn't left the UK, and like I'd been on a plane to travel to a funeral because it was COVID, but I hadn't left the UK. And then I was coming back to the UK, and my phone wouldn't work on the plane, and I was really unwell because I hadn't traveled in a long time, so my head hurt. And this woman like just paid for my stuff. She was about my age, and then we started chatting, and she's like, oh, don't worry, it's like a couple of quid. And she's like, money comes and goes. And she was like, it's so true. Like it's not, I've seen so many people like chase money in like corporate jobs and be like, oh, I'm earning such and such. And oh, it's like, okay, you might be earning that money, but you know, like when you're old, is that really, are you going to be happy that all you ever chased was money and material things? Like for some people that does make them happy, but you know, I've known a lot of people who've been incredibly successful in business and stuff like that, and a lot of the time they've actually stepped back from it and they've sort of gone and traveled and done other things with their time. Like I think money isn't fulfilling, and neither is like these like high powered like corporate jobs and chasing it and stuff. And even and yeah, I just like, I think like whether you're like, if maybe you're a nurse and you're helping people, maybe you're, I just don't know about this like, we live in such a consumer society where everything's so fast paced, and I think money is just, it's worthless really, like ironically.
That's brilliant. Yeah, it's the ultimate irony in a sense. I mean, because I think people often forget because they're too caught up in the value of it, what it can give to you. Like for me, yeah, I mean like, that I'll never get. Like I couldn't care. Like if I had the money right now to do the things that I wanted to do, I would just be investing it in projects, traveling the world, doing so many different things. Like I think about, when I look at money, I think it's opportunity. It can do this, it can do that. Like when I look at people, and again, this is not criticism, it's an observation. People will spend all their money on, I don't know, the latest Balenciaga stuff or whatever, and it's like hundreds of thousands or thousands. And I just don't get it. Like when it's explained to me that, oh, it's fashion, oh, it's status, oh, it's this, it's that, it's like, I don't know. I look at it very differently. I'm like, if I was walking down the street dressed in that, firstly, I mean, you're going to get robbed. That's number one. Number two, who is it for? I don't get it. Is it just to go to parties and then everyone compares and be like, oh, look, I've got this, I've got that. Like, I don't know. I guess it's just a certain type of person. It's different mindsets, different people. But
I mean, there's nothing wrong with like nice things. I just think
sure,
like the pursuit of wealth and certainly like bragging about. I think like I've known some people in my life who'd be incredibly rich and who'd be incredibly like humble and nice about it. But I also think that it causes a lot of corruption in terms of like some people don't understand that not everyone's going to have the opportunities you have, or not everyone's going to necessarily accept generational wealth. Like some people I know, like there was a girl I no longer take anything to do with, and you know, she was very much of the opinion that like it was her father's job to look after her for the rest of her life until she got a husband. And it was like, that's so toxic. Because it's like okay, cool, but then this idea of like couldn't understand that other people like have to make their way in the world and have to like when I first was in my early 20s, like I like struggled, and like I don't think I even wanted to admit to myself that I was struggling, because I didn't want to like admit that I didn't have, like I would borrow like from my parents and I hated it and I paid them back every time, but I don't like this idea of being reliant on other people. Like if I ever have to, and I'm sure there'll be times where I'll have to borrow again or whatever, but you know, I try and be sensible now and save and stuff like that. But like, for example, when I was in my early 20s, I earned enough to live in London, to exist in London. But when something went wrong, like I had to get quite a lot of dental work done, I didn't have the money for it. And like the dentist, I remember she said something really horrible to me. She was like, you know, if this gets any worse, it's like the cost of like heart surgery, you know, to get it fixed and stuff. If you go private, the NHS won't do it. And it was just the way she said it. And I was like, where the heck do you think I'm getting this money from to pay for this? I don't have it. And you know, and I think people who are wealthy don't understand that struggle. And they certainly, and then it gets to the point, I think, when people do start to earn a bit more money, that it becomes like bragging rights. Like someone who, again, I reasons why I never replied to this person, but had like emailed me earlier not that long ago and had sort of said, oh yeah, I have a job and it's to the tune of X amount of pounds. And I'm like, do you want a clap on the back?
Yeah, like why do I care? Like what
why
the
do
fuck
I care about your salary? Like, and I know it was done to sort of say, hey, I'm making a lot more money than you now. It wasn't even that much more. I was like, right, cool, mate, well done, congratulations, you sold your soul to the devil for more money. Cool, enjoy. Like, it was just like, it's not, it might, maybe I hope it made them happy, like maybe it did, but I think that money comes at a cost. And like even me, like I get tired all the time. Like in order to do what I'm doing, like I could arguably I don't know if I could have an easier job, to be honest. Like I think everything's just so expensive that like owning a house is just like, unless you accept huge amounts of generational wealth, like realistically, how are you supposed to do it unless you work in corporate? I don't know how you're meant to do it. Like, because even in Edinburgh, the houses is expensive to live in Edinburgh now as it is to live in London.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really changed a lot, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I know Manchester's expensive as well, actually.
It's getting there, yeah. It's getting there.
Everywhere's kind of getting like to the same sort of, the rich poor gap's getting bigger, which I guess is why it's important to sort of say, I guess it's really not going to make you happy. You can be totally miserable in yourself and be in like the nicest hotel in the world, but it's not going to make you happy.
As we draw things to a close today, do you have any upcoming projects or some final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
My third book's called Kathy, Get Your Dancing Shoes On. I'm going to go back to it at the end of the year, but not specifically like as in I'm going to have maybe like 3 hours to work on it this year. I'm going to finish it next year, and hopefully it will see the light of day sometime in 2024. Not entirely sure. It could be before or after that. No, it won't be next year. There's no way it's going to be next year, because I cannot do this to myself. I need to be kinder to myself, and as much as people can read a book in a couple of weeks, I certainly can't write one that quickly. But yeah, gonna have that's like my next big project. I'm going to be doing more Scots language stuff over the next year, So just doing more of the same, really. We'd like to be hopefully doing an audiobook, if not for one of my books, for both of them. That's most likely what I'll get to do at some point next year, which should be fun. And yeah, just keeping up. I just want to do more of the same, basically.
Bless you. Well, I hope it goes well, and
Thank you, and best of luck with your podcast and your music.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, this has been a real inspirational one for me personally, because obviously I spoke to you before about it, but for my listeners, they'll know that I've sort of juggling many different things at the moment, trying to desperately pursue those goals. And it's great to hear someone in a similar situation that's making it work for them, and hopefully, you know, I really hope it works out for you too. And hey, look, I mean it is, you're on to your third book and it's getting a lot of traction, and who knows where this could go, you know?
No, I think anything's possible. It's just a case of, and I guess don't underestimate the power that like half an hour doing something that you like or a bigger dream can do, even if you're not necessarily doing what you want to do all the time. Like half an hour makes a difference. It's still time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for
Well, thank
for
you so
appearing on
much
the
for
show.
having me and for your time.
I appreciate you, man.
Hopefully
Thank
that
you so
wasn't
much.
too waffly.
No, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Thank you so much. And to the listeners of the Christian Reeve Podcast, I hope you enjoyed today's show. Be safe, be well, and I'll see you in the next one.